Sai Bhargavi Akiri, happy spring. I think this is on resolution. I think I'm not sure. I was running late from my daughter's this thing. So resolution 2, I think it's 120K for a comprehensive strategy. It's listed as a professional service. My question is this listed on the list of professional services as defined by the federal government? The second question is on resolution 5. What's the 600,000, or I think it's all 599,000 odd, almost 600,000 emergency temporary appropriation for? What's the emergency?
Are those,
Then I have, what are the deadlines for submission of proposed budget? And when will the public get to see the complete proposed budget? Will it be made available ahead of the March 27th working session? I can read them back if you want.
no, I think I got it. Professional services, I believe that you vetted that is in fact a professional service.
Yeah, it meets the state's requirements for professional services.
Right, that's your question? Yeah. Okay, so number 5, we've sort of been talking about this word. Some municipalities use emergency, some just use temporary. We're on a temporary budget, so there are 5 or 6 items, and I don't have it. Anna actually got it for us, and I did not print it out to bring it with me. But essentially, it's the necessary things that we have to pay for to keep going until we adopt the final budget. She may know, we may be able to get that to you if you want to know specifically what.
Okay, because I thought that we passed these temporary appropriations, the 26% from last year's budget at the beginning of the year at your reorg meeting. So I'm seeing that we are seeing additional temporary appropriations, and it's not listed what it's actually for. What is the emergency for the 600,000?
I'm not in love with the word emergency, but this is the first year that we're using it. Our new CFO consultant likes the word early, and Alex has said they do different things in different, in my previous experience, it's been temporary budget appropriation, not emergency. So I suppose it's an emergency in the sense, and I'll let Alex speak to this as well. It's an emergency because we need to pay for these things in order to keep local government operations going.
So if you could list what is.
I don't have that. We did get that information from Anna, and I don't. You do? Okay.
Yeah, you could email, just list a few and then you could email it back to me.
Things like professional services, like paying bills, other contractual, education and training dues that we have to pay per various memberships, printing and binding that we need to do for everyday postage, advertising for all of our public meetings, medical insurance. That's the huge one. That's 1.83.
So these weren't included in the reorg meeting when we factored in the 26%?
I believe they were, but as we keep going without a permanent budget, we need to keep adding more money. And I guess each finance firm does it differently. These guys like to do it in smaller bits each meeting when they have to. So it means like these emergency appropriation bills keep coming on the agenda instead of doing one big one. I guess that's just their preference.
Okay. It's a suggestion if you could list what it's for, because every meeting we're seeing these coming up. And on resolution 2, so what will be the final work product by this Hoboken? I think it's Winning Strategies, Washington, Hoboken Strategy Group. So they're going to assist in developing and execute a comprehensive government affairs strategy to advocate and advance funding requests for the township priorities through the annual appropriations process. So who sets the priorities? Doesn't the council set the priorities?
It's a bit of it's a conversation, based on their professional opinion as to what typically gets funded. So there's 2 tracks. The WARDA bill is a federal bill. There's the appropriation, the earmark. I'm going to go with earmark, and then there's the appropriation. So if you recall, 2 years ago in 2021, we got a $500,000 earmark for the West Side drainage into the federal budget. So their they're very skilled at getting those types of earmarks, maybe more than $500,000. That's what we're hoping. But also there's a long-term plan. So the earmark process is roughly starts about now. I think they were due on March 17th. You usually hear somewhere in the June, July, if you think that you're in the federal budget, you have a good shot in roughly what the amount is. And then in the fall, you usually know that you've certainly been awarded those funds. So we're going for sort of an overall drainage sewer plant sort of perspective, knowing that we can't keep bonding. We just don't have the capacity, the bandwidth. We have a lot of debt on the municipal complex. We have to continue to pave roads. We have a sewer plant that we have to pay for. Every department has capital needs from DPW to, everyone, right? So the thought process was to try to find a more aggressive way that's not reliant on local taxes, but get a federal earmark into the budget this year. On piggybacking on that, the hope is that we'll also get an appropriation. So appropriations take several years because they could be a part of an Army Corps study. They can be a part of this WARDA bill. It is sort of a more long-term approach, but those awards tend to be a lot bigger. So last year we got $500,000. We're hopeful that we can double that. You never know. But an appropriation through a bill through the Army Corps could be several $1 million. Maybe, if you look around to neighboring towns, they got an appropriation, not an earmark. Nothing's guaranteed, but it could be like $4 to $7 million versus $500,000 in an annual budget earmark. So that's sort of what. So
That's what we are hoping.
they go out and they lobby for us and they advocate for us and they, sort of tell our story and our narrative, and they tell the story of the sewer plant and, all the capital needs that are there, as well as the drainage issues and how when we have flooding and other drainage issues, it impacts, our sewer plant. We exceed our permit when we have flooding, right? What we're supposed to, the effluent that goes into the Passaic. So it's all very interrelated. So they're trying to tell a bigger story so we can get a bigger federal appropriation. So it starts this year with the earmark, and then we're hopeful as time goes on, we'll get an appropriation. But so that's.
For the 120,000 we spend, can we get a clear, 5 bullet points on what are we expecting? And let's say we're signing them up now and you're saying this process is by June or July. So what's the return of investment for the township? We've spent $120,000 on this professional services. It's all an if and but, right? They'll advocate, if we get lucky, we'll get millions. If we don't. So can we hear some sort of an update on what's their contract time? How long?
It's a 1-year contract. So it'll be March to March.
March.
Today. Yeah. Effective today.
So can we get a monthly update on what they're?
Yeah, I'm sure we could. Yeah. Yeah. Good idea.
Because
It might not, the way the budget similar to the state, we
Yes.
went through the state process too. So I know the state, you sort of request everything July 1st, you might hear about it. And then by the fall.
If you don't have an update every month, that's fine, because sometimes, things take forever, but at least once in a quarter, we've spent 120,000. Hey, this was money well spent, or, we didn't get anything back.
Gotcha. Yeah. Good idea.
My last question was I looked at, I think,
Oh, the deadlines?
yes,
Off the top of my head, can you?
I have something called, look,
So technically, and Anna and I spoke with the CFO about this. I think it was end of March.
yes,
State deadline to introduce was by, and we checked with the CFO, I'm like, we're not gonna make this.
mhm.
And he said it's essentially not a big
Maybe-
deal.
Yes,
Also, a
Don't
lot of-
enforce it.
Right, they don't enforce it. It's apparently a guideline. But also I know we were waiting for the state. At some point, they were trying to determine whether or not they would give a blanket exception to municipalities to exceed the usual cap because of inflation. Everybody's costs have been going up. So nobody was really doing anything until they heard back from that, because that would make a big difference in how they budgeted. And they came back and said, I guess, sorry, we're not helping you on that. So that was another thing that was holding it up. But and then I think you asked about budget documents. I have to consult with council, but I don't think we're going to be making any public documents public for the working group session because it's the first time everybody's getting together to really talk about it. We had to sort of compress the process this year. But then we will have documents available for introduction when we will also do the presentation.
On
But
the 11th.
If that may be subject to change based on discussions that go on in the next week.
So basically, so the local finance notice that had that March 31st deadline that gave it for our mayor, council, Faulkner Act. So those deadlines can be, we can skip them.
That's what we have been told.
And there was something we were waiting from the state. I can't recall specifically what it was, but DCA was holding something up. So they were to provide us with, and we may have gotten them by now. But it typically is late too, because we're always waiting for the state to provide certain things for certain.
Cap, what the
Okay.
acceptable like appropriations cap each year.
Okay.
There's a formula that determines the exact cap each year.
Right. So because.
But in the training that we attended and Manny sent
Beyond.
us. Oh, sorry, it's me, but we got some stuff from the state budget training that basically said, yes, you need to introduce your budget by the end of March or your first meeting in April that is as close to the end of March as possible. So we have it in writing from the state in their training materials that our meeting on April 11th is okay. We're not in
Yeah, yeah.
violation of anything.
Okay, now, and so for the working session, what will the public see? So if we come to this meeting, which is on the 27th, what will we be provided to even give you feedback or? Because I believe the council should have seen something by now, right?
Yes, they have. I'll have to discuss with them because it's
You can get back to me.
defer to that.
Like,
Right. We are going to give, our CFO and myself, we're going to give a presentation department by department. We're not going to go line by line in the operating because that gets mundane, but we're going to highlight, sections of departments that may be either seeing big increases or decreases and explain why, and then go over the capital. So it will mostly be verbal.
Will the presentation be available ahead of time so that we can ask you any questions? Like, will
Yes, for introduction, yes, we get that up, and Jean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think last year we put that up on the website a few days before the actual meeting where we introduced the budget.
so not for the 27th? though?
No, the 27th, because the problem is that
Okay.
it's preliminary and it's not final. It's not even remotely final because it's the first time the 6 of us are all looking at the complete picture.
Okay.
And it's going to change. In the past, I think we've given like a 2-page summary handout at that meeting, just in Xerox copies, but not electronically, so people could follow along and that are attending the meeting. But then ahead of the introduction is where we put the more detailed presentation and the PowerPoint up and make it available to the public so they can look at it ahead of the meeting and ask questions.
So we'll have a handout and I'm hoping it'll have like past year comparisons compared to what we projected or so what did we project for a particular line item, let's say for the sewer plant last year, and how much was actually spent versus what are we projecting for this year? I hope we have that kind of data.
We'll have to figure out exactly how to, yeah.
Can't remember what exactly we put together for the public last year. I'll have to,
I think we had a public working session last year.
no, we didn't.
Yes,
We've had to do it differently for several reasons this year.
we
was
had
gone for
one,
3
I
weeks
think,
and-
2 years ago and
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just have to go back and look at the documents. But yes, so this is going to be fleshed out more in real time and publicly this time, which it's hard because you can't get everyone together, as you know,
Yes.
to discuss these things unless it's in a public meeting, and doing sort of separate groups with council members gets difficult because then not everyone might get the same information. It gets
Same time.
confusing with various drafts of budgets being flying around. So we thought maybe a public working group on this would be the most efficient.
All I'm asking for is like, I know we didn't have it last couple of years or maybe not last year. If we can just see that comparison of what we were hoping to spend.
You will
last
see
year,
that definitely in the intro.
On the 27th or,
Oh, that's
No, the 11th.
I'll
They'll
put
be-
something together for the 27th. It's not going to be a detailed line by line because a lot of these things haven't been decided yet, but I'll try to give like an overview
Mhm.
for the 27th.
do you guys have like a finance committee or somebody?
We're
who
not allowed.
oversees that? Oh, not allowed.
Not this form of government. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
That's why in a lot of other towns, there's a smaller council group that is that finance committee where they hash a lot of these things out. So then by the time it gets the full council, a lot of it is ironed out, which in some respects makes it the process easier. But we don't do that, so we're gonna have. it
Our form of government doesn't allow it.
Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, Sai.